So, last night, the Dallas Mavericks upset the Phoenix Suns, and they did so in embarrassing fashion. And it was actually so embarrassing that at one point in the game, the Mavericks were nearly up by 50 points. Now, I was going to make a video about this, but earlier this morning, Pat Beverley had a lot to say, and so I decided, why not react to it?
And the reality is that not only did they lose, they got annihilated. They got a butt whipping, an epic butt whipping from the ages. And this is one of those days where you can't defend him, you can't defend Devin Booker, you can't defend anything about the Phoenix Suns.
Now, to give a little bit of context of what's going on right now, what Stephen A. Smith is saying is right, and in particular to Chris Paul, it's also very, very telling. So the storyline that's going on right now is that Chris Paul, this is now his fifth time where he's blown an 0-2 lead, or a 2-0 lead, excuse me. Fifth time blowing a 2-0 lead in a playoff series. And, you know, in many of these series, Chris Paul is heavily favored to go on to win the series. So it's not as if like these are close series like this right here. The Suns were undeniably like the best team in the NBA. So for them to lose it in the fashion in which they did, there is some credibility to questioning, you know, Chris Paul's career resume. But bro, what Patrick Beverley is about to do is ridiculous.
Do guys in the NBA go to sleep early the night before playing the Phoenix Suns? Hell no.
You mean as a team, or would you talk about Chris Paul individually?
Chris Paul individually.
Okay.
No. I'm going to Steak 44 over there in Phoenix. I'm going to have me a nice little wine, probably sweat it out, and but the pregame shoot around and get ready for Chris Paul. Steph Curry, I'm going to bed at 8 o'clock. It's two different monsters.
Look, all right, so again, out the gate, and it gets worse in this, like much worse, but this is one of the ones that people were talking about. It's hard for me to sit here and say what NBA players do and don't do when matching up against Chris Paul, because I'm not an NBA player, and Patrick Beverley is an NBA player. But I guess the rebuttal would be last year when they matched up against you, Pat Bev, in the playoffs, an elimination game in the conference finals to make the NBA finals, Chris Paul went out there and dropped 41 points on the Clippers and did so while recording 8 assists and 0 turnovers and shot great from the field. And again, propelled his team to the NBA finals. So if you're telling me you didn't go to sleep at night to prepare for that game, it sounds like you probably should have caught some Z's. Because if he went out there and did that to you and embarrassed y'all, Chris Paul was having a field day on the Clippers last year in that closeout game. Just last year when Chris Paul, the same guy you claim that you don't sleep for, when he was embarrassing you on the floor, you got so emotional that you pushed him in his back.
CP can't guard nobody, man. Everybody in the NBA know that. Everybody know that.
Guard anybody.
What we call a cone. You know what you do with cones? Like when in the summertime, you got a cone. You make a move. What does the cone do?
Stay still.
Exactly. Yeah. He's a cone.
Hey, Greeny in the background. Greeny in the background, filling in the ad-libs is crazy. What does he do? Stand still. Exactly. Yo, look, I understand what Pat Bev is talking about. I've said this numerous times. There's so many players in the NBA who have built a resume of being a defender, for example, and they were doing it 4 or 5 years ago, but at certain stages of the career, they're not defending the same. The reality is that it's very, very rare for somebody to carry the offensive load while still being an elite level defender, especially at an advanced age. So I agree to an extent with what Pat Bev is saying. Like, he ain't the same defender that he once was. To say he can't guard, when somebody says that, in my mind, I'm thinking like, yo, like, that he's a liability. To me, I don't think Chris Paul is a defensive liability, but we'll continue to let him to explain. Let's see.
In the NBA, there's a whole bunch of cats in the NBA that can't defend.
No, when I compare him to top 10 greatest point guards ever.
Okay, all right.
I'm not looking at
that. But that's different. That's different. You said the man can't defend.
No, I'm not saying that. But now you want me to take what CP is and put him in a bottle with everyone else. I won't do that. I would not do that. He's a top 10 point guard in all time. What would John Stockton do?
And also, Jesus, okay, let me just say this as well. Bro, and there's not a single soul on that top 10 point guard list, top 15 point guard list that is going to be expected to defend at an elite level at 37. There's just not. And John Stockton fits in that criteria. I don't care what anybody has to tell me. At 37 years old, John Stockton is not defending at an elite level, especially in today's league. You telling me John Stockton going to look at Luka Doncic and defend him? Even in his prime, he ain't doing that. Let alone at 37 years old, man. Y'all crazy, man. Y'all crazy, bro. Y'all crazy.
Offensively, his skill set didn't compare to CP3.
I agree.
Offensively.
But what would John Stockton do?
He would get torched. John Stockton would get torched by Luka Doncic. He would get humiliated by Luka Doncic, especially at 37 years old. He would get humiliated. Let's cut this cap, bro. It's Luka. Nigga, y'all crazy?
The reality is, one could sit here and say, well, he's 37 years old now. But the truth is, these stats go all the way back. The history of postseason disappointment is one of the narratives with Chris Paul. It has been a long time. It's unavoidable.
Now, there's this belief that Chris Paul, the reason why he always loses because he's the one who underperforms. But if you look at the numbers, statistically speaking, that tends not to be the case. Like, statistically speaking, Chris Paul is one of the very few players throughout NBA history where his numbers actually either stay the same or increase in the postseason. So I have to dig a little bit deeper. Probably a good video for the main channel upload. But I have a hard time believing that Chris Paul is the main reason why they always lose those games. I can only think of one, maybe two times where Chris Paul underperformed while he was healthy or relatively healthy, excuse me. But outside of that, I don't really know about that whole CP is the one who underperforming type shit, bro. I don't know about that.
I do question if he is your best player.
Right.
If he is your best player, is your ceiling a championship team?
Well,
and so far, historically, the answer to that is no.
The ceiling is not a championship team. That's number one. Let's get that out of the way. You get blown out and you down by 46 in a Game 7 on your home court.
Part of the reason why I think a lot of people, including myself, feel like they're not going to make the next step isn't really because of Chris Paul. We sitting here slandering the fuck out of Chris Paul right now. But truth be told, Chris Paul regressing or plateauing is fine. Again, he's 37. The real problem here, and I'm getting tired of people avoiding this, addressing this and just avoiding it, is Devin Booker. Like the idea that Devin Booker can go out there and be 20-some years old and not improve enough to enter his name until be a top 10 player in the NBA, the way that Luka has done for the past 2 years, the way that Tatum is doing right now. Because the reality is that Chris Paul should not be the first or second best player on the team. The reality is Chris Paul should really and truly be the third best player on this roster, and it should be Ayton and Booker. But we're going to sit here and slander Chris Paul, understandably so, because we view him on that caliber. And that's fine. I have no problem with holding somebody to the standard in which we hold him to. I don't hear nothing about no Devin Booker being in the top 10 to 15. No, he's not. Until Devin Booker can get to that level, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it, dog.
But why are we steady mentioning Phoenix Suns like established
because they were the defending Western Conference champions last year, and they won 64 games this year.
That's it.
That's why.
So that's why you give them.
No, I'm saying that's why we were talking about them.
Okay. All right, I got it then. I understand. So I just have to go to the Western Conference, and I have to win a bunch of games, and then I'll be considered, the Minnesota Timberwolves will be considered one of the greatest teams. Okay, got it.
If you won 64 games this year and was the number one seed fresh off of getting to the finals the year before, we'd have been talking about you too. But with all due respect, Patrick Beverly, y'all did get bounced out of there.
50 games.
Okay, but you lost the first round, right?
Yeah.
Did you?
We did.
Okay.
Yo, I ain't gonna hold you. Pat Bev, because this is where the delusion really seeps in. Patrick Beverly coming on First Take and talking about what they need to do. Bro, y'all were the seventh seed. Granted, that's the most success that the franchise has seen in a long time, but that's not really nothing to celebrate in a grand scheme of other teams in the NBA. Bro, you were trying to compare what y'all did, which is a 50-some win team, to a 64-win team. And not only that, bro, let's be clear here. Again, the Game 7, embarrassing. Blowing a 2-0 lead, embarrassing. Bro, the Minnesota Timberwolves should have won that series in 5 against Memphis. Y'all blew more leads than anybody else I've ever seen. So for Patrick Beverly to come up here and act as if like, oh, all we got to do is da-da-da. Bro, winning 64 games in the regular season, fresh off a finals appearance, that ain't no all I got to do something. Let's be clear. The reason why we don't talk about Patrick Beverly in the same light, because we don't even hold him to the same standard. Same thing with Edwards, same thing with Towns. It's not the same, dog. It ain't even close. Bro, Pat Bev, you would have thought Pat Bev was on multiple 60-plus win teams throughout his career. He just popping out 60-win seasons, bro. Come on, Pat Bev.
Boy, scared of Luka. Ain't nobody afraid of anybody over there in Phoenix, man. Everybody in the league knows that, bro. Like, it's just that y'all don't know that because y'all not in the locker room. No one's afraid of Phoenix. We wanted them. I talked to some teammates. I ain't going to say who because I'm going to say who. Forget it. I talked to Paul George last night. Man, Pat, ain't nobody scared of them.
and that right there is where I kind of lost a little bit of respect for Pat Bev, and that's where I'm going to end it, bro. The idea that you're bringing up people's names in this conversation to add more credibility to what you're saying doesn't make any sense. So kind of find out, I actually missed a couple of things that Pat Bev talked about, so I'm re-recording this portion of it. And Patrick Beverly is not only delusional about some of the things he's saying, but he's just flat out lying about what somebody else may have said. And Some of it stems from Chris Paul hate, but also stems from James Harden love, and it's crazy. Pat Bev went on to sit down with Stephen A. Smith and talked about, some interactions with him and CP and throughout his career, et cetera, et cetera. And for whatever reason, he decides to talk about pushing Chris Paul in his back last year, which again, mind you, it was when CP just embarrassed the team and sent them packing in the conference finals last year, which is crazy. But listen to how he talks about pushing another man in his back.
But my question to you, when I pushed him, why didn't his teammates do anything? Shows toughness. Devin Booker was right there. Jay Crowder was right there. Ain't nobody pushing me, man. Somebody pushed me on the team. Minnesota Timberwolves is going up. Somebody pushed me on the LA Clippers. It's going up.
So you're telling me, because please let me understand this. You do something as cowardly as pushing a man in his back as he's walking away from you, and your first interpretation of what just occurred is, you guys, they ain't really tough around here, man. I get to do what I want to do. I'm tough. They ain't tough. I'm big bad. I'm tough. Bro, you're a coward, bro. You just push another man in his back while he's walking away from you, and you have the audacity to talk about what's tough and what's not tough, bro. What are you talking about, bro? You pushed a man while he's walking away. The reality is they not trying to stoop down to your level because they have some form of integrity, but apparently it looks like you don't. Because if that's the takeaway that you had after pushing a man behind when he's walking away in his back, bro, you're weird, bro. You're weird. Secondly, Matt Barnes decided to defend Chris Paul. Shout out to Matt Barnes. And he said his piece. I more or less agree with Matt Barnes said. I think that what Patrick Beverley has been saying over the past couple of days about CP has been crazy. But then Patrick Beverley then comes back and says,
Matt Barnes made comments yesterday, which he's entitled to. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, right? But Matt Barnes is also an NBA player also. So for him to make comments, supporting his opinion about, the Chris Paul and all that, I respect, I totally do. But you go up there and you tell your NBA brethren, you go up there and you tell the whole world that this man doesn't deserve his money when you were just in the NBA, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years ago. What if someone said that to you?
I was thinking to myself, like, bro, like, did Matt Barnes really say that? Because that doesn't sound like something Matt Barnes says. Like, that's not something that he would say. That's completely out of his character. He's extremely pro player. So now I went to go look, and of course that's not what he said.
To me, I think you got to play the creative side. I think that Max, with all due respect, the way he's kind of come downhill just off maybe 2 years ago. And partly because he set the bar so high. This guy is a 34, 12, and 8 guy just 2 years ago. You know what I mean? So for him, he's still at like 19, 9, and 7, which are crazy numbers still. So as far as superstar and being able to carry a team, I don't know if he's there, but I do believe that they need to run it back. I do believe with those two and a possibility of adding one more Max through creativity and surrounding them with some shooters, they still have something there.
So then once I realized that, I was like, bro, you just hop off of Harden's dick, dog. Like, God damn, you're sitting here putting words in another man's mouth who never said what you just sat there and said, bro. Get off of it, bro. How long is it, dog? How long is it? So then what's even crazier is this. I then went back to go watch a couple of more clips, and it's just weird how this man is talking about how much money James Harden should get paid, and then out of nowhere bringing Chris Paul's contract in the situation, which is, again, weird. You're weird, dog. You are weird.
Well, I think you were on an earlier show. You compared it to Chris Paul's contract. So Chris Paul's contract that he re-signed with Phoenix is $120 million, 4 years. There's a partial guarantee. I would fully expect James Harden to get more than that.
But then more importantly, factually, it doesn't make any sense. Sitting here talking about how Chris Paul he's overpaid and he's not getting paid as much and CP, y'all don't criticize it. Bro, look at how much money Chris Paul is getting paid in contrast to everybody else in the league, bro. Next year, Chris Paul is going to get paid relative to players such as Kevin Love, Al Horford, Kyle Lowry, and I want to say DeRozan, who's on a pay cut, but DeMar DeRozan. Is that not in the realm of players that Chris Paul is in? And even if you say it's actually a little bit lower, which I would slightly agree with, that means that Chris Paul is underpaid in contrast to other players in the league. But then to sit here and say that James Harden should receive a super duper max, and I get it, that's your guy.
Max, super max, whatever the word is after super max, that's what you give him. He's James Harden.
But to not understand and comprehend why people are saying that, And then especially when you compare him to other players in the league, doesn't make any sense, because the reality is if you're really trying to sit here and protect James, since that's your guy, you would be truthful about who he is as a player right now, not sit here and gas and pedestalize him to the point where if he does receive that money and it comes with expectations, then even more slander is going to be given his way. And that's really the problem when you have people like this who are so delusional and hopping on cock. God damn, get off of him, bro. Get off of him. What you saying sound nice, but the results and the information that we all see ain't adding up, bro. So let's pipe down for a second, bro. Pipe down, brother, because you sound real crazy. Look, man, I appreciate Pat Bev's honesty, even though it's his honesty. I think there's a couple of things that he wasn't completely truthful about, but, you know, it's his version of the truth, and that's understandable. The reality is I think the Phoenix Suns, they had a horrible collapse of a season, a great regular season, was poised to make another deep postseason run, and fell short. And moving forward, I do believe there's legitimate questions that need to be had about how the makeup of that roster is. A lot of people are going to focus on Chris Paul, but in my honest opinion, the focus needs to be on Devin Booker, because the reality is that he's supposed to be the guy who ascends to be the top 10 player in the league that many people expect him to become. Many people who are voting him for league MVP and making those arguments late in the season. Many people who are looking at Jason Tatum do the same thing, and we're starting to notice a difference. When you sit there and see Luka play, we start to notice a difference. But until next time, let me know what y'all think about the video down below. Pat Bev saying some outrageous things, but until next time, I'll see you all later. Peace.